And I thought there was a better way of doing things. And from what I learned over the years, there is a better, more efficient way of doing things using their products versus what they tell me at the local feed store. They all want to sell me a lot of product, but they don't leave me no margin at the end of the year.
Yeah, my name is Jim Hallbeisen, and this is my opinion. Today on the podcast, we're heading to the state of Missouri. And if you get on I-70 in St. Louis and head to Kansas City, there's an exit Boonville, and that's approximately where we are with the podcast today, which is almost dead center in the state on I-70. And Steven Streck has been with growers for a fair number of years, and we're going to talk business with him today. He has cattle, he does row crops, and does a little repping for us. So I'm going to let him take off with talking a little bit about his farming operation, what he's doing, how he implements cattle with his row crops, and you can talk about anything you want about your operation, Steven, and then we'll discuss those pictures that you sent to me and have a little detailed discussion about that. So take her away from here, partner.
All right, Jim. Well, it's Steve Streck in Missouri. I farm a few hundred acres of row crops, corn and soybeans mainly, very little wheat. I do custom work for my neighbors, corn and beans as well. I cross a lot of hay acres a year. I've got about 50 cows, but I've got a lot of other people that hire me to mow, rake, and bale for them. I do 700-800 big round bales a year, and that's a 5x6 style hay operation for everybody here. But in my row crop, I was introduced to growers several years ago, and I thought there was a better way of doing things. And from what I learned over the years, there is a better, more efficient way of doing things using their products versus what they tell me at the local feed store. They all want to sell me a lot of product, but they don't leave me no margin at the end of the year. So after implementing the high cow line and vertical tillage through my operation, minimal till, I'd like to just make one pass a year at best. I farm in a real low river bottom, and I bought this place from a man that was 96 years old, that was born and raised there. He gave me a lot of rules you got to play by to farm in these bottoms. He says, you might not raise the best crop, but you'll always raise a crop down here if you'll live by these rules. Mm-hmm. And that's part of waiting on the first annual flood in the spring. Once the flood gets by you, you can go in and work your ground, put out your crop. And I raise between, my average is, in the 160s, but last year was 220, 230, but I'm raising a lot of corn with 0.7 to 0.79 pounds of nitrogen. They say you can't do it. You need to put on 1 to 1.2 pounds. I'm like, no, I'm not spending that much. And I like the theory of foliar feeding and trickle feeding stuff. I don't eat one meal a day. I'm kind of a fat guy, so I eat 2 or 3 times a day. So in the spring, when I'm putting my corn in, I like to put about 5 gallons in furrow with a 30 to 32,000 plant population. I get my stand and everything looks good. When I come back to post my corn, I like to throw another gallon on then. And then if things really look good toward the end of the season, I'll throw another gallon on then. But that way I'm not just putting all my eggs in one basket when I'm doing my corn. And I feel like it's really paid off.
Stephen, on nitrogen, what do you do for nitrogen on corn?
I'm using just 140 pounds of ammonia or anhydrous.
Okay.
And then I come back with my 5 gallons in furrow. Mm-hmm. And you can sure tell, like I've got a spot this year where the machine wasn't primed for the first 100 feet. And you don't have any nitrogen. You got to have a little bit of some kind of nitrogen, whether it's liquid and or anhydrous, and people over here, they overdo their anhydrous. They like to put on 200 plus pounds. And if you read and follow this, how much extra calcium that burns out of your soil is phenomenal for the pounds of nitrogen you don't use. So I like to use the minimal where I know my plants are going to use all of that and not burn my calcium out. When I first bought this farm from this fella that was 96 years old, it had been disc its whole life, had a 4-inch plow pan on it. And I thought, well, we better get some vertical tillage going. I had a guy from the Corps of Engineers in here, and he came in and said, you've got a really really hard plow pan in here. It's only 4 inches deep. The old guy only disced his whole life.
Right.
So after talking with you and talking with others, I went in and put on about 3 to 4 ton of high cal lime that was 700 some on screen, fine. And then I went in and inline ripped it, and it was tough the first year. I couldn't pull that thing over 4.5 miles an hour.
How deep
And
did you
since then,
pull it?
I was doing good to get 8 inches.
Wow.
I mean, it was a 4-shank ripper on a John Deere 4450, and it was just gutting that Ford tractor. It was tough. Me and my nephew spent almost 4 days on 100 acres. I mean, it was all we wanted to get through it. So I figured after we ripped it with the lime on it, that would maybe help infiltrate some of that lime down in those furrows, and try to get that into my lower soil profile. And as doing that over I've been with the company over 8 to 10 years doing this. I'm now pulling a 6-shank ripper 13 inches deep at 6.4 mile an hour. So it has loosened my ground up, and I only rip inline rip. I don't want to disturb the top. I just want to keep everything up in the fall.
Right.
And I like to do that and then let the winter moisture go down in there and maybe break up some of my plow pan. But at least I'm making a lot more progress than I did before with that 4-shank ripper.
So, hey, Steven, we need you to talk a little bit about your calcium source. Where are you getting your lime from, and has that been a struggle for you getting that?
Well, the fine grit lime comes out of Springfield, Missouri. I'm kind of lucky at that time when I first started this. There was trucks coming to Jefferson City, which is only an hour away from me, hauling sand every day.
I see.
So I picked it up as a backhaul from them guys.
I got you.
And they brought it in for me, and it was $21 by the time I got it applied per ton. But I put on, like at first 2 or 3 tons, got going on it, and then I got a local source that's about 20 minutes away, but it's only about a 470, 480. But it's a good high cal lime, low magnesium.
Good.
And that's what I've been using, some of that. And now I bought another 100 acres this year, but only about 65 acres are tillable. And we had to throw the kitchen sink at it on the word go just to try to get it up. But the old guy, he made a living there his whole life, but I want to get production up even higher, get more water infiltration, get everything up like it needs to be. Because in my other bottom, over all these years of putting high cal, I'm up to 9,300 pounds of available calcium, according to my soil test. So with that being said, when I started out, I was only like at 3,200.
Right.
And my ground dries out 2 or 3 days quicker than the neighbors. They all look at you like, how can you run and we can't? I said, I don't know. But I can tell you that I am a high believer in this lime deal. And they just look at me and shake their head that you're going to make everything sick. You're putting too much lime on because that's what the elevator in town tells them.
So, hey, how are you spending it, Steve? You got a machine? You do it yourself?
Yeah, I've got I got a lime truck and I've got a floater truck now, both. I can spread my own lime across the top, and it works really well on about a 30-foot spread.
So what do you try to do that in the fall? Or are you doing it in the spring or both or what?
Well, this year on the new farm, I had just closed on it 30 days prior to, so I had to put it on in the spring. I really like fall application, try to get the moisture to activate it, to get things going, because we all know that lime only moves at 1 inch per year. And that's where I think the vertical tillage helps me try to get more in the cracks to get it to travel down faster. I go around yearly. I've got a soil penetrometer that tells me where my plow pan is and everything if you're looking for one. Just trying to find what's your weakest link in your soil in that plow pan. But anymore, I don't ever get up into the yellow on that. On that. When I first got it, there was an area in there about 3 inches thick would go into the red. Right. It was so hard, but we have since got away from that. And this year we've been kind of lucky. We didn't have any rain last year into the winter. We were so far behind on rain this spring that our pasture insurance had already paid its premium for this year. And then once we got ready to go to the field, it has started raining and it has never stopped. I mean, we've got a crop in. It really looks good. But like this week, there was no rain in the forecast and we still got 2 inches.
Wow.
Where it comes from, we don't know. But it's July. Everything should be brown and burn up here. And it's just as green as the gardens of Eden. So we're pretty fortunate this year.
Good deal. So on the volume of lime you apply, How did you figure that out? I mean, and what rate, if you've got a field, you're going to put lime on it, how do you decide what rate to use on it?
Well, I kind of like to look at the soil test and see what it's telling me. And then I kind of go look at my penetrometer and see what it tells me as far as where is the plow pan in this field and what kind of tillage practice I want to use for this year. And then ultimately, you got to look at your checkbook. What can you afford?
That's right. Exactly.
If you can afford 3 or 4 ton the first time and then skip a year and maybe hit it with another 2 ton, you'll get to the point you really want to be at with that. But the more you do it, the more you see you need it. And it's by far the cheapest fertilizer you're ever going to buy. Everybody else wants to sell you, all this. You figure out by the ton, that lime really does its job. And for instance, this year I had 50 some acres of what I call no-till beans. Well, they were no-till on the far end. I only disc my inrows because I don't like to bounce across the corn stubble from the previous year.
Right.
But I no-tilled the beans in there. I burnt the weeds down right as we were planting them. I haven't got to post them yet because there's no weeds in them yet. But I want to post them as soon as possible because I want to put on another gallon, of growers on top of them, but they look phenomenal. Right. And I think that the high cal lime really helps in your chemical working for you long term, because last year's from the corn is carried over and no weeds to speak of. And that's kind of nice. Everybody else at the local elevator, they want you to do a pre, then they want you to do one right after you plant, then they want you to wait again another 69 days. They want to hit you again. And free pass the chemicals, they're taking a lot of money out of my pockets that I don't feel is right.
So one thing I want to ask you, when you're full of your feeding growers, what kind of water volume do you use? Do you mix the growers with water, and what kind of water are you using?
Yeah, I'm using my local well water here that I've got. It's passed the test. I've checked it multiple times. But we're using about 20 gallons of water is what we like to use.
Okay.
Right here.
What kind of pressure are you using?
On the 20-some pound of the water pressure on it. I mean, it all goes back to your orifice on your tip and everything, but I like to use a really fine mist. And the newer guys want you to use a pulsating tip with a little bigger droplets. I kind of like the fine mist because I get a really good kill on everything and really flow it under. I use a really good surfactant that sticks it to the plant and holds it there. And I prefer to spray in my evenings if I can. If late afternoon to evenings when I really like to spray. Every now and then you got to go a little earlier than that, but that's just, I've got an old rogator, so I'm slow and lethargic about getting things done. It's only a 60-foot machine, but I get by with it.
Sure. So I want to talk a little bit about the picture you text to me. The first one that you text to me, it was, I don't know, the corn was 4 or 5 inches tall, and I could see the down through the middle 2 rows were definitely lighter in color. And your contention is that that's the guest row, basically, and, you weren't getting fertilizer to those outside rows, and you definitely could see it with the color there after emergence.
Yeah, the picture, I should have known better. I started planting, putting the liquid on, and usually, I'd already planted a lot of acres corn for neighbors custom, and they're not doing the liquid program because it's too much work. I hear that all the time. I said, you can't afford not to, but we all have our opinion. And on that first field, I was planting it, and man, my pressure gauge was just running a little high. It was running about 27 pounds instead of 22 or 23. And I thought, oh, it must be me. My screen must be a little bit dirty or something. So I stopped and cleaned my screen, and it just never would back down. And I'm like, there's something going on here. I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong because I know every year my corn has a separate set of valves on the top versus my beans. I switch orifices, I switch everything, but it's just a matter of turning a couple knobs. But when I got toward the end of the field, I better check this thing a little closer. And I got under there to find out my outside 2 rows had a little bit of dirt at the end of my in-furrow unit, and they wasn't putting on very much liquid at all. I mean, if they were. So I took a piece of wire and I cleaned them all out. I thought, oh, there ain't gonna be no difference. But it was my outside 2 rows on an 8-row planter. Well, then, lo and behold,
there
it comes up and you start looking at it and you're like, huh. And everybody said, well, it was this, it was that. Well, in everybody's defense here, I put on 2 ton of chicken litter. Well, I brought in 100 ton of chicken litter, 18 ton of high carbon, and I brought in 75 ton of lime. I blended all that in one pile with a skid loader and let it marinate for about 6 weeks before I applied it right before planting. So I know I had all the fertility there. I know my anhydrous applicator put everything on right there. So everything was even across the whole field. And the only thing that could be, I shorted myself just a little bit on liquid in furrow.
Sure.
And that corn was a couple inches behind it. The whole time I kept watching it. It's got knee high. And you drive down the road, you look at the sideways view of that, you see them rows up, down, up, down. You're like, what? It surely can't be that. And so we went a little further, and you kept watching it, and you think, okay, maybe it is that. So last week when I was over checking some cows, I was on that hill, I could look down into the corn, right, and them outside 2 rows, which are lapping because
that second picture really shows that.
Yeah, when it comes tassel time, look what I got. They were just a little further behind. So, it started out a little bit weak. It struggled a little bit, but I mean, it's there, but it didn't catch up with the other corn ever. Everybody said, oh, once it dries out, it'll catch up. It'll do this and that.
Never did it?
Nope. It's just been behind the whole time. And I guess this week will tell. I mean, most of the field's pretty much pollinated out. And that one's pollinating just a little behind the other one, them 2 rows. But it's just kind of an odd deal. But it does show you that it needs that liquid right off the get-go as soon as it sprouts to come on out of the ground strong.
A run hog is a run hog. Just that simple. So.
Yeah, and it showed it to me all season. I sat and watched it, but everybody looked at it and said, oh, there's this reason. They all have an excuse for you.
Oh, yeah.
You know exactly what you did wrong there because everything else was done like a sheet of paper. Everything across the whole field had all the same nutrients put to it. This is the only thing different was in 2 little plugged up jets. And when I got to my next field, guess what? Never happened over. Same variety of corn and everything. Went all the way across 50-some acres there. Went up to the next 30, did it up there. It never did it nowhere else but right there where I couldn't get it on.
Good deal. Good deal. So I just cannot resist, since you're a cattleman, you guys are all got this big smile on your face, and everybody just keeps smiling away. So let's talk a little bit about the cattle business and your particular cattle business, what you're doing with cow-calf and how you handle the calves and where do you think this thing's going? I've got guys asking me all the time, where's this cattle thing going? And, this morning when I was watching ABC, they basically had a big segment on how expensive beef is right now. And so it's flowing through society also. So just kind of talk a little bit about your cattle business and where you think this thing's going.
I'm a small cow-calf operator. Like I said, I only got 50, 60 cows if you count the heifers in there with calves and 3 different farms or whatever. But basically, they hit the ground in the spring, come fall, I'll wean everything, bring them into my little small feedlot operation or whatever where I feed them all winter. And I'll feed some of my grain to them. I use my corn a lot on my cows and calves there. Mm-hmm. But I'll background them to about 725, maybe 750, depends on what the weather's doing and when I can get them out in the spring. But I like to have them sold about the time the cows start calving again. Mm-hmm. The market here is just crazy high. Nobody's saving many heifers back, if any heifers, because they say they can't afford to. Mm-hmm. A good 3 to 5 year old cow that's, let's just say you either got a calf on her side or second to third period, you're talking over 4,000 a head. A lot of them are asking 4,600 for them. And you don't see anybody putting any fences back in. If anything, they keep taking more out. So we have less and less cow guys here. The older guys getting out on a high note, and no young guys want to do cows. Everybody wants to be what I call a 4x4 farmer. They want 4 weeks to plant, 4 weeks to harvest, and 44 weeks off. And they just the elevator and tell them to spray it and do this and that. And a cow-calf guy, every morning you get up, you got somebody bellowing at you that needs something. Right. You need to be checking on them, whether it's for, minerals, salt, you got to roll up hay for them, but it's work. But right now it's the best it's been in a long time. In 2012, I can remember we sold some $1,400 calves and we thought the market doesn't get any better than this. And we have far surpassed that this year.
Really?
My guys that I talk to, the feedlot guys and everything, they say there's more room for down than up. They said they can't see when it's going to be because everybody is aggressively taking it on, as far as the price. They just do it. He goes, do your insurance payments on them if you're going to buy a bunch of feedlot cattle and try to cover yourself because one of these days, he said, something's got to go down. There's just too much room for it not to. But the market's there, and we're doing the best we can with it. I mean, you got to take something to make up for these cheap row crops. So you got to be glad you're diversified.
Right, right. So last year, you said you were, on the dry side. Did that, affect production as far as cows are concerned? Did you get rid of a few because you didn't think you'd have enough feed, or how'd that go?
Everybody got rid of a few last year. I mean, they didn't cull as hard as the year before, but there was a lot of stuff that everybody made sure every cow was raising a calf last year. If she wasn't, more than likely she went on down the road. But everybody's trying to manage their hay crop because 2 years ago when we were buying hay during the drought, it was so expensive. The hay was, and the cows wasn't that high. It was almost like doing it for nothing. But now it's come back and we've really got it going, and the hay guys are all upset up in the north, which is Dakota's where we were getting hay from. They can't hardly give hay away compared to what they were selling it to us before. When they get down below $170, $180 a ton, they act like we can't do this for that. We were paying you $200 and some a ton during the drought. So, everything comes around.
Turnabout is fair play.
Yep, we do have a tremendous amount of chicken barns going in this area and feed plants, and they're building another monster egg handling facility not 10 miles from me, but it's just wild, the chicken business. Everybody's trying to get in the chicken business right now that I see. Yeah. Nobody wants to get the cow calf.
We're seeing it. We're seeing it around the country, various areas where the chicken business, they're trying to expand it. I think they're trying to weasel their protein in with beef. They feel that they just can't afford it. But again, I think the volume of beef is low enough that people are still willing to spend to a certain degree. And but again, the chicken people feel that they're going to be able to get some more of that action. So,
well, they're going for that, and we got a lot of guys changing into the egg business too.
Really?
I mean, they're changing their buildings out to egg layers. So, like I said, they're doubling the size of our egg plant over here. And our eggplant claims they got over 10% of the nation's market going through that one building.
Wow!
Of all the eggs. I mean, it's 24/7. They run eggs over there. But it's just crazy to see that. The hog business, it virtually don't exist here. Guys do it for one thing, the manure, and then they pump it on their fields. But there's nobody putting more hog buildings in or doing anything like that. But with cheap corn like it is right now, it would be a good business to be in to try to, walk some of your feed to town instead of trying to drive it to town.
Yeah, that manure thing.
Making no money.
That you're talking about is a lot of guys going to manure, for their nitrogen, potassium per se. And we've just looked at some research that was done at Beltsville, Maryland, where they're talking about the ionophores that are used in livestock feeding. See, everybody is concerned about antibiotic resistance, and they've tried to eliminate the antibiotics in livestock feed that are used at the human level, but they're using other antibiotics, which are called ionophores. And what they're seeing is that this is causing some damage to the microbes that are in the soil. And see, this is something we've seen as a company over the years as guys have gone to stronger applications of animal manure. These ionophores are starting to give them some problem out in the field as far as biological populations are concerned. And what our guys have done to try to deal with that issue is just cut the rate and then put the high-cal lime with it, and that seems to ameliorate that. And they're trying to compost the manure to get rid of the ionophores, but they've actually found that they can't get enough temperature over a long enough period of time to do that. So our response has been just cut the rate, get the calcium with it, then you'll get the same fertility effect out of it, and then you don't have the risk of the ionophores. So,
I would agree with that. I mean, some guys here think the more the merrier as far
yep,
as lime the manure goes on chicken litter, and they want to put 2 ton a year on and whatnot. I'm a fan. If I'm going to put on 2 ton this year, I'm probably not going to put it on for 2 to 3 more years. I'm going to limit
yep,
that, and I'm going to look at my cow value in my soil because, like I said, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Because my brother years ago, he had a small 500 head hog barn, and that's what they had. It was a great big lime pile out back. And if you had a dead one, you put it in the lime pile and buried him in it,
sure,
and that dissolved everything and got rid of all your issues.
right,
Well, there's got to be a little truth to that neutralization there in your soil that you can handle it when it's got nature's antibiotic in the soil for it.
yep.
If you got the calcium there, but
See, that proper population of microbes, that's a big issue. And see, this is the thing, we've tried to talk to guys about, and I think that's coming more to the forefront. And these issues with using these high rates of manure, we've seen that from the beginning back in the 60s in Pennsylvania, where guys, were milking cows. They had a chicken barn, they had cattle. They just had an awful lot of manure going on a very small acreage, and it gave them some problems. And see, as they backed that down a little and got the calcium where it belonged, that seemed to help alleviate that issue, and they got better production. And most people now, they're just looking to cover more acres, so use less and get the calcium with it.
Well, what is the old adage? Solution to pollution is dilution.
There you go.
So you don't want to put on no more than you have to still get results. But when you overdo anything,
yep,
no matter what product it is, you're going to have a problem.
That's right. So the bottom line for you guys, you think you're going to have decent production this year?
Right now, our crops look as good as they've looked in a long time. I mean,
okay.
Everybody's already talking over 200 bushel corn here, and we're 160 bushel average county.
Sure.
So that tells you where we're at. And it is hot this week. We got 107 to 110 heat index. I've been in the corn bin finishing shoveling one out, and I know it for a fact. But everybody I've talked to is planning on a big corn crop. It looks great, and they're calling for maybe another inch of rain tonight, which can't get any better than this. It ain't got it flooded out for, say, wet spots in the field, but everything is just looking stellar.
Good.
And that could all change, but we're at the present moment for going into August, it's as good as it's looked in a long time.
So
pasture-wise and row crop-wise.
Most of your corn is going to feed, would you say, Stephen?
Yeah, I try to keep all mine for my cattle, and then I go into a couple chicken feed mills, and I've got 2-year-old corn. It's still, upper in the high 50s on the test weight of it. Moisture's 11%. It's dry.
Sure.
And they say it's still, it holds good together, but I've always got, 60, 61 pound coming out of the field.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really good to me. Like I said, I've got a friend that's in the growers program with me, and he says your formulation of what y'all do has a better margin than what the local elevator does with my rental guys that he sharecrops with. So he said, I got to stick with what you're doing, because he goes, it's more money in my pocket. I got to make payments, and I don't want to just pay the local elevator everything, but this is what their recommendations are.
That's exactly right. We got to keep the wealth on the farm where it belongs, in my opinion.
Yeah, if we're going to afford another farm at this rate, right now, it's just crazy what they're quoting us for pricing on chemicals and stuff. And then you can go to somebody that you can spray yourself, and you can save a tremendous amount of money by not listening to them. But you got to be careful of what you do out there.
Sure.
I mean, everything, you got to do little experiments here and there. And I've done a lot of them over the years, and I'll keep going further with less. I keep a spreadsheet on everything. It's a deal where I put in all my costs, and it tells me what I can raise a bushel of corn for. And they say I can't do it for that, but I prove it year after year after year. And I'm like, okay, well, if I can't do it, I'm keep my head above water somehow.
That's strip test.
Margin.
That's a big deal, man. You got to figure out where you're going.
Yep, and how much you can afford to get there.
That's right. That's right.
They all buy bragging rights is what I tell them. I say, yeah, y'all do all that stuff. And A friend of mine this year, he had over 100 bushel average on wheat. He had over 800 acres of wheat. He said, but I got $475 an acre in it without my machinery, without no land rent. I said, then how does that make any money? He goes, you really hope the double crop come on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, you're buying your bragging rights, and it is beautiful wheat. It looks just phenomenal, but in the end, there's nothing left to put in your pocket. Is it really worth it?
Yep, that's exactly right. Okay, sir. Hey, this was excellent. I really appreciate it, Steven, and I hope things hold together for you guys and things go well. You get a good crop, and we'll keep this beef price up and keep you boys going.
Yeah, that's all we can hope on the beef. But like I said, one's high, one's low. It's a teeter-totter in this world. You're going to have one or the other. Cattle are cheap, grain is high.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So, hey, you going back to shoveling corn, or are you done for the day?
I'm not done for the day. I got to do some work on a sump pit in there, but it's going to be a rough one.
Okay, very good. You take care of yourself, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the call, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
This podcast has been brought to you by Growers Mineral. Please visit growersmineral.com.